What's happening, everybody? So this video is comparing Ford Transit van to Chevy Express to Chevy Astro. The Transit van is not exactly in the same league because they are newer vans and they're much more expensive, but I wanted to compare them anyway to talk about what I think makes a good candidate for a van for van dwelling, and some of the things that when I was looking for a new van, and if I was looking for another van, I would look out for. So we'll start with this Transit. We got this U-Haul rental here, and I just wanted to start off by just looking at the back. First thing first, the walls are pretty flat. It would be really easy to panel this thing. It would be really easy to throw whatever kind of insulation you want in there and insulate the living hell out of this. Super easy. Even the ceiling is pretty flat. The boxy shape of this van is extremely helpful for building a van. Now let's look at space. This is a full-size bed frame, which I will be using for size comparison on the inside. I'm not going to go and get the exact measurements of the insides of all these vans because it's very complicated. There's all kinds of curves and crazy things, so I'm going to let you make up your own mind and just see the full-size bed frame in each one, or a full-size mattress. So this is how much room you have on the side, and it really isn't that much bigger than an Astro. Let's go look at it from the side. Now these doors, I don't know if they make a sliding door on these ones. This particular one has this double open door like this, which I actually greatly prefer over the sliding door. One, it's easier. Two, you can attach things to it. Three, you can, leave one side closed and just open another. It's just much more convenient. So this is how much room you have between the full-size bed frame and the back seats. It's probably about double the Astro. As far as the room you have, I could fit two of my fridges in there instead of just one. Now the actual size inside, this is not a high top one. They do make high top versions. It's taller than the Astro, definitely, and I think it's probably about the same as the Express without a high top. So there is that. Now the interior of this thing, because I think it is important to be comfortable. So I'm going to talk about comfort real quick. Seats are extremely comfortable. These are really nice seats. They're a little on the soft side, but they're really nice. Now the driving area, particularly the way it's laid out, ow, that thing just went up my butt. The way it's laid out is pretty cool. You got the shifter right here, and the dash is pretty cool looking. It's got all kinds of computer functions on here, which you can't do unless it's running. All the vents, it's really nicely laid out. It's very comfortable to drive this thing. So the footroom is not good. It's really not very good. It might be a little bit better than the Astro, but there's not a lot of footroom at all. And the area between the seats is very small too. It's about the same as the Astro. So the actual driving area is tiny. The area where you can see out is incredible. Look at the view, man. You've got such a good view on this thing, and all these little cup holders all over the place, and these little nooks and crannies where you can store stuff. It's just amazing. I love it. So this thing has an incredible turning radius, and for drivability, this absolutely wins over the Express and the Astro. No questions asked. For drivability and probably comfort too, it's a very easy to drive van. It's just incredibly easy. A lot of that comes down to the front wheel drive and it just being a newer engineered setup. They have more modern technology in this thing than in the Express or the Astro, because those are old designs now. Those are from the 90s. Okay, so I am in the Astro now, going over a speed bump. Now, if you don't have $30,000 to spend on a new Ford Transit, you might be looking at the Astro or a Chevy Express. Of course, there are plenty of other options. There's a Ford Econoline, there's the Dodges, everything else. But I just happen to have these three vans to work with, so I wanted to share the difference between these. Okay, so let's, first of all, let's talk about how it drives, because if you're going to be living in a van, you're obviously going to be driving it all the time. So you want something that drives decently, or at least that you're comfortable in. If you're huge, now I've known 6-foot-tall people who drive Astros and they said they've been fine, but it's not going to be nearly as comfortable as a full-size van like an Express or an Econoline or whatever. The footroom in this thing is very limited. It is more limited than the Transit. The Transit has a little bit more, and the wheel wells have a hump up here. I don't think you'll be able to see it well. I forgot my light, I'm sorry, but there's a big hump right here, so your left leg is always on the hump. The seats are not as comfortable as the Transit or the Express, but other than that, all the controls for everything are perfectly within reach and comfortable, where in the Transit, it's a bit of a stretch. The window things are off a bit. You have to really like stretch out to turn up the windows and everything else. So I like this setup a little bit more in the Astro. Let's go in the back and check it out and see how much room there is to actually live inside of it. Okay, so this is, like I said, by far the smallest one. Here is a full-size mattress. It goes perfectly between the wheel wells, and it can come back farther. It can come to about here before it hits the wheels. And then let's go around the side and see how much room that leaves us up front. Remember I said in the Transit we had enough room for probably 2 fridges. Here we have enough room for about 1. You can see where the back seat is, and you can see how tall it is too. Much less height than the Transit. Let's get a shot kind of from the side. So you don't have much to work with. If you were a single person and you only need a single mattress, not a full, I think it would be really easy to live out of one of these. And because they're so good on gas and they are so small and maneuverable and fun to drive, I think it's still a great option for a single person. For 2 people, it could work. It definitely could. Would I want to live with 2 people in Astro? Probably not, especially after getting the Express and seeing what other options there are as far as having space. So let's see, what else can I say about this thing? Super reliable. These are great vans. Parts are cheap. They're fairly easy to work on as far as vans go. It'll be easier than the Transit, that's for sure, because it's got a lot more stuff going on under the hood of that thing. Other than that, I think this is a great option for somebody who doesn't need a ton of space, who wants to live out of their van rather than in it, and just doesn't need much space, you know, is super minimalist. Once you start getting some stuff, trying to keep stuff in here and lay it out in a way that it's easy to get to everything and it's convenient, that's a little harder. My biggest problem with this van was trying to find a layout that was easy to access everything and easy to do everything. I didn't have to do 3 things to do 1 thing, you know, super inefficient. So I just never found a layout that I really liked. But if I only had like a bed and water and food and some clothes and maybe a couple other little things, it wouldn't be so hard to lay this thing out. But I always had more stuff that I really needed, you know, but I wanted, so I kept it. So the Astro's a little tough. I am going to miss this van a lot. Let's go check out the Express though. Okay, so I am now in the Express, and this is by far the biggest van. The interior feels the biggest. Tons and tons of leg room, tons of arm room everywhere. The view out the windshield is pretty good. It's definitely better than the Astro, not as good as the Transit. The view from the Transit is amazing. This one, you feel like you're inside of the van, and same, especially with the Astro. The Transit, you feel like you're out in the world. It's really a cool experience. This one is it's a 97 and it's extended, so it has an extra long wheelbase. And because of that long wheelbase and the long overall length of the vehicle, it can be a real pain to park in the city. I mean, you get used to it and it's really not that big of a deal. It does not turn that sharp. It can just be a real pain in the city. It's definitely my least favorite for the city. But on the highway, because of the long wheelbase and just the way the thing is set up, it's pretty smooth and it requires like much less energy to drive than especially the Astro. The Transit's got a big leg up on drivability and ease of driving because it is front wheel drive, and the Astro and the Express are rear wheel drive. Oh my God, look at this dog. Look at this giant dog. Can you see it? Look at that dog. Oh man, it's huge. But the long wheelbase of this van makes it just amazing to drive on the freeway. I feel like I can drive twice as far in this thing. And also the steering box is not as sensitive, so you have to turn the steering wheel more for the vehicle to turn, which I like a lot. It just provides a much more low-key feel, and on the highway it's just a much more pleasant experience. You're not constantly like trying to move the steering wheel and trying to keep it straight, you know, it just goes straight and that's it. So for drivability on the highway and long distances, this one's my favorite. City, definitely Transit, hands down. Let's park this thing and take a look inside and see how much room we got. I can't wait to show you what a full-size bed looks like in this thing. This thing is just so long that it's ridiculous. So I know that the Transit comes in 3 different heights and I think 3 different lengths too, but none of them are as wide as this. We were actually able to fit this full-size mattress sideways in the back of this thing, and it had to get squished a little bit, but not too much. It pretty much fits just right. So that allowed us to, stepped in an ant nest. Glad it's not fire ants. Lucky to be in Oregon. That allows us to have all this room, which is probably about the same cubic feet or meters or whatever as the Astro. So we've got like the Astro plus a bed plus a ton of storage underneath. So if space is your thing and you don't have the money for something like a new Ford Transit or Sprinter or what's the other one, ProMaster, then I think the Express or an Econoline Extended could be a great option. Now the Ford and the Dodge, they have extended vans, extended length bodies, but their wheelbase is the same, so they have a huge amount that hangs off the end, so they don't handle as good. You got to be careful when you go around corners that back doesn't swing out and hit something. Other than that, I think that this with a high top is like a poor man's Sprinter pretty much. Not going to be as good on gas. I think most Sprinters are diesel anyway, but yeah, this is my favorite of the 3, just because it's so good on the highway. It's reliable, it's got that great Chevy engine in it, it's just got so much space, and once we get the high top on here, it's just going to be plenty of space. Like, we're not going to need anything bigger or anything more. It's just a great van. So I guess to recap, the Ford Transit is really expensive. I mean, I can't really see justifying, for me, spending all that money on the van when you could get a good Chevy Express or Ford or Dodge or whatever and put a high top on it for still way less. I mean, we paid I think $4 grand or $5 grand for this van. It's got 80,000 miles on it and it's just in great condition, and we're gonna spend $2 grand on the high top, so there's 7. That's still way less than a good used Transit or Sprinter or ProMaster in the same price range. So it's just a much better deal. It was a little harder to build out because it's got these crazy shapes to the ribs and all these crazy angles and stuff. But the Astro has that too, so it's a little difficult that way. One thing I really, really love about this van versus the Astro, and I think they come with sliders too, but these doors, this style door is by far my favorite, and I'll make a video about that really soon, talking about why I prefer this type of door over a slider. But I wouldn't, if you want something small that's good on gas, that's fun to drive, easy to park, easy to navigate a town, and pretty stealthy looking, I think the Astro is a great choice. It's an awesome van. It's pretty easy to work on as far as vans go. It can be really tight in there when you're working on stuff, but I think all vans are like that, so that's not really against the Astro itself. But other than that, I don't think I can say much more. This van is definitely my favorite out of the 3. Man, I'm gonna miss that Astro though. When I sell that, I'm really gonna miss it. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope that helps some people out, and I will catch you next time. Love yourself.